Change is the Immaterium's only constant, and so every Space Hulk molded in that evil realm is unique. Their creation stories long, winding, and mysterious. The Gallowdark is but one, a colossal monstrosity the size of a moon made from countless thousands of spacecraft hailing from innumerable races and vast quantities of spaceborne detritus. The Gallowdark's existence stretches back so far into time that it is beyond the imagination of even the ancient Eldari or Necrons. The Space Hulk has been subject to incredible change during its time adrift in the Empyrean, its mass continually crushed by ferocious tides or stretched to breaking point. New ships constructed by thousands of races, from the feline reptilian Kara Liakwa to the Garnath Pact slave caste, have ever been punched into its structure, blending with those vessels already a part of the Hulk's morass. The Gallowdark's components do not only include ships but also colossal asteroids and the immense carcasses of void monsters. Where the Immaterium has given, so has it taken away. Vast chunks of the Gallowdark have been broken off by warp currents, Hulk quakes, and rupturing power cores. Catastrophic damage has also been caused by the most apocalyptic wars of the Hulk's denizens. Over the millennia, inhabitants of the Gallowdark have been as diverse as the ships that make up its mass. Organic or inorganic, they have come and gone, explored and delved, settled or become trapped. Many have been utterly destroyed, others have vanished completely. Those that remain have raised settlements, brokered alliances, and dug burrows. The Gallowdark has emerged from the Immaterium on many occasions since the Emperor's first efforts to forge the Imperium millennia ago. Each time it has appeared reformed by the whims of the warp. Thus it has been granted many names and designations across the galaxy. The Imperium has known the Gallowdark at various times as the Abominant, Fate of Revelation, 00GZQ7 and the Ender of Hordes. Eldari Corsairs of the Sunblitz Brotherhood have known it as the Soul Thief. Most harrowing and heretic Astartes of the Wordbearer's Traitor Legion have heralded it as the God's living will. It has been 4 millennia since the Gallowdark was last in real space. Now that it has returned in the wilderness region bordering the Imperium's Nemesis sector, the desperate and the opportunistic seek it out. Among the first to find it were the Kroot of the Warsphere Rakvaroyau, hardened warriors who had spent many years making war across the stars. They had already accrued much wealth, yet saw in the Space Hulk one more opportunity to enhance their riches. It also presented a chance to add to their genetic diversity, as when Kroot eat the flesh of other creatures, they have the ability to rapidly absorb biological traits and pass it on to others of their kind. The Kroot took their chance to board and ransack the Gallowdark before others arrived, but were too slow. Quick on their heels, quite unintentionally, were the Imperial Navy forces of War Group Alpha 7th of Battlefleet Nemesis. Admiral Arminius Philo XVI, commander of this force, wasted little time in attacking the Rakvaroyau. Outnumbered and outgunned, the Kroot had no choice but to withdraw heavy-hearted, knowing they had abandoned many of their number within the Space Hulk. With the battle done, Philo dispatched waves of boarding craft full of elite naval armsmen to the Gallowdark. The denizens of the Gallowdark are countless in number and myriad in their diversity. The screams and howls of tortured machine spirits, strange sentiences, and unnatural malign entities haunt the corridors. Deformed arachnid predators and flesh-craving ratmen dwell in the darkest tunnels, while winged monsters hang from iron rafters ready to strike at any unfortunates who roam into their territory. Many of the Gallowdark's monsters defy any kind of categorization and hail from long-forgotten times. These beasts are known by such monikers as the nine-tailed Havener, the Maw, it that slithers, and the Grawler in the Rent given to them by the Space Hulk's more recognizable denizens. The inhabitants of the Space Hulk include humans, aliens, mutants, heretics, pirates, exiles, and many others. When these beings realized that the Space Hulk was no longer in the warp, most perceived the moment of danger and opportunity it was for all. From the desperate to the eager, warriors and raiders raced to seize fresh armaments, hunt distracted foes, refortify their territories, or make plans for escape. A great upheaval was occurring. For the ambitious, there was never a greater chance to gain new power, but those who failed to adapt would surely be destroyed. One such force already aboard the Gallowdark was the brave remnants of the elite Cadian 15th Kazakin Regiment. Their ship had been just one more victim crushed into the Space Hulk's embrace over the course of its long existence. The Kazakin pulled themselves from warded crypts that had shielded them during the Gallowdark's long sojourn in the warp. Time is as mutable in the immaterium as any other principle of the universe, and they had no way of knowing that 4 millennia had passed. The Kazakin quickly found themselves hunted by the hierotek circle of the Necron technomancer, Hamanet the Relentless. He sought them out, desperate to kill them and rip from their dead hands an artifact of his own creation they had recovered millennia before. A device vital for the awakening of one of his dynasty's tomb worlds. Additionally, under orders from the great schemer and manipulator Lady Malice, the deeds of a host of sadistic Drukhari resulted in an unsuspecting Imperial prison barge, the Dyad of Zafri, being brought into a direct collision course with the Space Hulk. Many sought slaves and playthings, but one of her bands was tasked to capture a witch aboard the jail ship. The Drukhari did not wait for the moment of impact to launch an attack against their target. Wraith-like mandrakes and midnight-hue armored Kabbalite warriors stormed the Dyad of Zafri, butchering all in their path. As battle raged aboard, the prison barge hammered into the Gallowdark's flank. When the Dyad of Zafri struck the Gallowdark, it did so as a harpoon would pierce a void whale, penetrating deep within the Space Hulk's flesh of rock, metal, and xenomaterials. Though barely a speck in comparison to the gargantuan mass of the Gallowdark, the prison ship was no minor vessel by Imperial standards. With a capacity for many tens of thousands of prisoners, in addition to its crew and Adeptus Arbite's garrison, the damage it inflicted was catastrophic. Much of the Dyad of Zafri itself miraculously survived the enormous collision, but its mass powering into the Space Hulk caused a ripple effect of catastrophic destruction. The Gallowdark, being an amalgamation of countless vessels, was home to thousands upon thousands of leaking fuel cells, unstable warp drives, barely standing structures, and vats of highly volatile liquids. Every day aboard the Gallowdark an engineerium detonated. A tank full of promethium burst or a ship teetering on the brink of collapse caved in. As the prison barge speared into the Space Hulk, scores of these events took place in a matter of minutes. The Gallowdark shuddered with quake after quake, fault lines veining its bulk ruptured, and warp energy that had originally sealed them spilled out. Chunks of the Space Hulk were torn away from the main body and left to drift into the void, leaving trails of corpses in their wake. Even those regions not incinerated in raging storms of radioactive energy or atomized in a terrible explosive instant felt the Dyad of Zafri's impact as after-effects rippled throughout the Gallowdark. The area called the Crimson Zone was once part of the hangar bays of a colossal battleship belonging to a long-forgotten species. By some strange mechanism, blood-red warning lights still bathed the area in a scarlet glow. The inhabitants of this region came to worship the illumination for its unfailing presence. When the prison barge struck the Gallowdark, the Crimson Zone shook violently. Shanty settlements collapsed and hundreds of inhabitants were killed, yet most buildings still stood. The terrible shaking ended and the light remained. The people gave praise. Their crimson protector had surely saved them from doom. Seeing this as an omen that their time for glory was nigh, the inhabitants took up their crude weapons and advanced beyond their borders into the dank territory known as the Skitterducts, already racked with war between throngs of mutants and genestealers. This network of tunnels, ductways, and tubes flowed anew with blood. The Lurk was a region of the Gallowdark avoided by all but the most desperate. Pitch black, it was home to ghoulish once-men, grotesque descendants of human slaves once kept within the bowels of an orc-ship, whose eyes had withered to nothing over generations. The Dyad of Zafri's impact collapsed so much of the Lurk that the bitter troglodytes were forced to flee. Moving into the area known as the Arched Citadel, they discovered a heretic Astartes sorcerer of the Emperor's children, who had recently been freed from a sense-depriving cage by the prison barge's impact. Twisting his face into a depraved leer as the mutants approached, the sorcerer bound them to his will. Though this was a time of terrible turmoil for so many of the Gallowdark's denizens, for those of an opportunistic nature and who had avoided obliteration, it was a time of plenty. Seams of wealth were exposed that had been hidden for millennia. Troves of archaeotech were revealed, and there was something else. Signals long trapped by the Hulk's warp-tainted mass were finally freed, audible to those with ears to hear.